Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Hey folks, today is Wednesday, August 17, 2022. Coming up on Roland Unfiltered. I'm broadcasting live from Clearwater, Florida. I'm here to address the Black Latino Summit. Next on Black Star Network, the former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax, has filed a $35 million lawsuit against a public radio station in New York over the allegations that he raped a woman and that derailed his political career. We will talk with him in his first interview since filing that particular lawsuit. Also, on today's show, we'll also hear from and talk to the sister of Killed Cary Owsley. They want to know, how did Kerry die? There's a documentary that they're doing with regards to his death, and you want to know about one of these tragic stories that we've seen far too often. Also on today's show, Facebook, how did profiting from a white supremacist group? We will tell you about that on the show as well. Plus, in Charlottesville, Virginia had its first Black female police chief get caught in a department. Would not, I repeat, follow her directly. The city council has now fired her. We will talk with her right here on the show. Also, in our Tech Talk segment, we'll talk to two brothers who are creating a tech space for those who want to expand the technology field. The first Black residency hacker house. And NFL players, gospel singers, they're in a choir. They're also competing on America's Got Talent. We'll talk with one of them. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Unfiltered, the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the biz, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics.
network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks, as you see, I am here in Clearwater, Florida. I'm here in Clearwater, Florida, folks, and giving a speech here tomorrow morning, and so that's why I'm not in studio. And so I'm hanging out. I'm hanging out on the balcony here, and so that's where I am. So again, hopefully y'all saw the ocean and the beach here. So certainly glad to be with you right now. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Folks, the saga regarding the former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax has been going on for several years. He was in position to lead the state of Virginia, being the person who was going to be at the top of the ticket. Yet he was then accused of sexual assault. Then it became two cases of sexual assault, and then that was what caused his career to be derailed. Although he remained in office, folks, he could not recover from that, and so he has been fighting these charges. The FBI is investigating whether or not someone investigating the allegations behind him. He had been calling for this for quite some time. Now, what he has done further is he is now filing a $35 million lawsuit against New York Public Radio after they aired an interview calling him a rapist. This is his first interview since filing that lawsuit. And we're now joined by the former Lieutenant Governor of Virginia, Justin Fairfax. First of all, Justin, glad to have you back on the show.
Thank you so much, Roland. It's great to be with you. And I think we're going to be live in video in a little bit, but it's so great to be with you.
Okay. And of course, we always do full disclosure. Justin is a member of Alpha Phi Alpha, so am I. He's also a member of Beta Nu, Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the Boulay. I'm in the same chapter, and so it's always important to have full disclosure. So tell us this. Why are you now filing this lawsuit? What is the most recent thing that happened?
Yeah, Roland. Well, right now we're at a point where we're finishing the process of fully clearing my name. As you know, for the past 3.5 years, unfortunately, we have been going through a tremendous smear campaign, and we've had a lot of things that have been said about us that have been untrue, a lot of false statements that have been made, defamatory statements. And, you know, it's unfortunate because it's all been part of politics. It's all been about things that people wanted to achieve to try to block me from being governor back in 2019 and to do some other fairly nefarious things. And what we said is we're always going to stick to the truth. We're always going to focus on the people of Virginia. And that's really what has kept us going forward. And so now what you're seeing is this smear campaign really unravel in so many ways. As you have seen investigations start to happen by the FBI, you're now seeing legal action reports, and so many people rush to judgment on this. And that was something that was really incredibly unfortunate. And we're now seeing the results of that. And I think we need to now take a step back, and people can now see the danger of rushing to judgment, the danger of assuming, the danger of allowing people to make these claims with no evidence and demand immediate punishment results. And now the truth has come out that these things were false from the beginning and they were politically motivated. I think Virginians and Americans Americans really want that reckoning with the truth, and that's what we're focused on.
Now, again, the lawsuit specifically is naming New York Public Radio. What happened there? Was there an interview that was done with one of your accusers?
Yes, a little over a year ago, there was an interview on New York Public Radio, and again, there were some tremendously defamatory statements that were made, provably false statements, and also there had been some previous court rulings by the Fourth Circuit and by the Eastern District of Virginia, where they clearly said that if these things, which were known at the time, were not put forward, these exonerating pieces of evidence were not put forward at the same time that these false allegations were raised again, then you would have actual malice, which is what the standard is for public figures, and then you can proceed with the defamation action. So, this broadcast went on, so totally eviscerated the Fourth Circuit's decision and guidance that continue to carry out the defamatory smear campaign. And so we want to really make sure that we're not only holding people accountable for what they've done here. I don't want this to be done to anyone else. No one in America have to be subject to this kind of a smear campaign, to not be given due process, not to hear their name. I think for 3.5 years this has gone on, and it's been 3.5 years too long. And I want to make sure that this does not happen to anyone else.
Now, again, there were two allegations. One with regards to something happening at the Democratic National Convention in Boston. That was in 2004. And then the second allegation alleged that you raped a woman at Duke University. Now, the lawyers of both of these women have criticized the reports of an FBI investigation. Stories have been done in the Intercept, have been done in the Washington Post, saying that they have talked to a number of people. They're talking to others. Also, the mayor of Richmond, Virginia, has come out on record stating that he had not been talked to. His name, LeVar Stoney, has been mentioned as a part of this. You have been highly critical of him. Former Governor Terry McCullough, and also, most recently, the former Governor of Virginia, Douglas Wilder, did an interview where he castigated those who he said were involved in targeting you and trying to keep you from becoming governor of Virginia. And so what do you say to folks out there who say your name has not been included, has not been definitive, that there's still allegations right now that still hover over your head?
Well, Roland, what I would say is that any allegation that someone would make and not want to have investigated for 3.5 years tells you a lot about whether it's true or not. And so the fact that, I've wanted this investigated for day one, and those making the allegations, their attorneys, their PR firms, political actors have avoided investigation for 3.5 years. It really lets you know that these are false, and it was all about a political smear campaign. I'm so grateful to and proud of Governor Douglas Wilder, as you mentioned, a political hero of mine, first African-American ever elected governor in the history of the United States of America. He, Congressman Bobby Scott, an incredible leader, and Senator Mark Warner, they from day one said that these were accusations that needed to be investigated, there needed to be due process, and we needed to get to the truth. And now, 3.5 years later, as we're getting to the truth, which is that these were fabricated allegations to begin with, they were politically motivated, and the FBI has been given evidence of that fabrication of the claims, and also evidence of a lengthy smear campaign. It vindicates what Governor Wilder, Congressman Bobby Scott, and Senator Mark Warner said from day one. And it also vindicates what we have said from day one, which is that these things were false. And so we also have heard recently, you mentioned Duke University, Jim Coleman, who is an extraordinary professor at Duke Law School. He debunked Duke Lacrosse 1.0. He just weighed in a great piece by the Raleigh News and Observer, written by Kate Murphy and Steve Weissman, where Jim Coleman said that Duke University did exactly what they did in the Duke Lacrosse case once again in our matter. They rushed to judgment. And that was absolutely wrong. It should never have been done. As you mentioned, Corey Maggette, former Duke basketball player, he also was falsely accused by the same accuser. And again, This should not happen to anyone in America. And part of what we're fighting for is to ensure that no one else has to go through this, that their families don't have to experience this, their communities. And, I'm proud that through, faith and hope in our family and so many other people who have rallied around us, not only did we deal with this, but for 4 years, we stayed in and we fought for the people of Virginia. Because I was there as lieutenant governor, we got health care for 700,000 people. I broke the tie votes as lieutenant governor. And so you stay and you fight for the people. And so this is all, again, you're seeing a smear campaign completely unravel. And for anyone, who would say, well, this is not resolved and the allegations are still out there, you should ask the people who have made them. And also you would ask, for instance, the lawyers who continue to, propagate these and say things in the media, would they want someone to accuse them and not let them resolve their allegations to resolve and clean their name in 3.5 years? Would they want themselves to be treated in that way? Would those who have said these things in the past want people to rush to judgment with no evidence to say these things about them with no due process? Of course they wouldn't. And so we've had to stand up, with dignity, with the pride that we have, and knowing that we are absolutely innocent, absolutely telling the truth. But also that, again, we don't want this to be done to anyone else. And in politics, as you know, Roland, I've been on your show now for many, many years, ever since I got in politics here in Virginia over a decade ago. I've faced all kind of attacks, from within the party, from figures within the party. But what I've always done is what Doug Wilder taught me to do was to go to the people. Trust the people, really fight for what you believe in and never give up. And so that's really what we're doing. And so now the FBI, again, has been given evidence of fabrication of these claims, evidence of a smear campaign. As you talked about, I met with the FBI for over 3 hours with no attorney present because I had nothing to hide. And so for people saying that they've not met with the FBI or they have not been contacted, they could go voluntarily and do it. I think you have a lot of people now who, after 3.5 years of smearing me, need to clear their name. I think they need to clear their name. And I don't know that they'll be able to do it because they won't take the steps that we have done. And so with that News and Observer piece, again, they talked about the fact that, we have done everything that we could possibly do. The Washington Post editorial board has now weighed in twice. And they said that they can't think of another prominent man who has faced these kinds of accusations who has done more, who has gone to greater lengths to clear their name. And I shouldn't even have to do it, frankly. We should live in a system where the presumption of innocence is honored. But I have done this to also show, not just by innocence, but to show a new way forward, to show that we can be better as a country. And so this is all being resolved. I think Duke University, where I served on the Board of Trustees, I've served on the Sanford School Board of Visitors. And, I started, Roland, as you know, we've talked about this a lot. I was 8 years old, dreamed about going to Duke from inner city Washington, D.C., got a scholarship. A lot of folks who believed in me, ended up on the Board of Trustees, later on the Sanford School Board. And it only took a press release in 43 minutes and a couple false accusations for them to eviscerate 23 years of that relationship. But the Duke I know and love is going to do the right thing. I think going to do it sooner rather than later. And I think all those who rush to judgment, as Jim Coleman said, this was Duke lacrosse 2.0, essentially. I don't want there to be a Duke lacrosse 3.0. I don't want this to happen to anyone else, and I don't want this to be done to anyone else. So we're standing with pride, with love, and I'm really, frankly, very inspired. I've lived a life of hope, and that's how you get to where I started to where we are now. And so, Roland, I thank you for the opportunity for staying with the story, to see it all unravel. You, from day one, talked about this. You were asking, why is there not an investigation in the very earliest days? And now 3.5 years later, you're asking the same question because these allegations were fabricated, because they were false. They're looking for evidence of something that never happened. And so we are clearing our name, but more importantly, taking us to higher ground as a Commonwealth and as a country.
You talk about 3.5 years, talk about the rush to judgment. You've been critical of the former Governor Terry McCullough, saying that literally, was it 3 minutes after the allegation came out, there were tweets calling for you to resign, and there have been others as well. We've now seen people, some Democrats who called for Al Franken to resign. They walked that back as well. They said that was a rush to judgment. And so So talk about that, because when we talk about this smear campaign, you laid out this theory as to what this smear campaign has been. What has it been? You mean you're accusing a mayor of a city and a former governor of being involved in trying to keep you out of the governor's mansion, and they were successful in doing so, in that you failed to win a Democratic nomination for governor when you came up.
Right. Well, Roland, it's pretty well documented, and there's so much evidence to support this. And again, as you mentioned, Governor McAuliffe, 3 minutes after press release, called for my immediate resignation. He had no facts. He had no evidence. To my knowledge, didn't know these accusers or the accusations, unless there's something that we don't know. He maybe knew it in advance. I don't know. But if he didn't know it in advance, then do you really want to have someone, as Governor Wilder said, in charge of the Commonwealth of Virginia, who in 3 minutes can attempt to destroy someone's entire career with no information and no evidence, no basis? And so, I wouldn't want that for anyone, including him. And so I think that we've got to get to a better and a different place. And you mentioned the mayor of Richmond, who's, very close to the former governor politically for many, many years. Again, there's been well-documented links and ties between him and actually really both accusers, actually. There's evidence that's been presented. And so, what are the odds? I've never been accused in 40 years of jaywalking. And then, minutes before I might be elevated to the governorship, these out of the blue, totally uncorroborated accusations are then leveled. And then there are connections between the two accusers and the mayor of Richmond, who is then connected to the former governor, who then runs again for that office. It was pretty obvious from day one, and there's even more that's not even yet known to the public in terms of evidence of the smear campaign. And again, that's why I was very happy to meet with the FBI for 3 hours with no attorney. And I would ask anyone who weighs in on this, particularly if they're making the accusations or wanting to propagate them, are they willing to go and meet with the FBI for 3 hours with no attorney? I bet you won't get too many takers because I was, telling the truth, and I was also very happy to get this resolved. And so we've done everything, as the Washington Post has said. We've called for the DAs. There's no known investigations. The News Observer reported just the other day. We have filed civil lawsuits to get everyone under oath. No one's filed them against me, and I'd be, happy to be in court to get these things under oath. And of course, now the FBI being involved, and Duke University, you mentioned, where this, incredibly serious allegation was made with no evidence. And as it turns out, there's proof that it's false, and proof that the same accuser has also accused Corey Maggette, former Duke basketball star and NBA star, who was also innocent. And so how many people does one person get to falsely accuse before we stand back and say, this is wrong and it needs to be rectified? And certainly in the Duke lacrosse case, Duke, when they understood that there was no evidence that these were the wrong things to do, to just allow these hoaxes to go on, that these were really not only endangering people's health and well-being and safety and lives, but, their futures and our rule of law. Duke stepped up to the plate. Former President Richard Broadhead, who I know very well and, have gotten to really come to admire, he had moral courage, and he stood up and he talked about the danger of prejudgment. He said that the scariest thing about Duke lacrosse was that there was instant moral certainty when the facts were not yet at all established. And so, Duke, within minutes of a press release, after 23 years of my relationship with them, starting as a freshman, all the way up to my time on the Board of Trustees at Duke, being elected as the only student in the entire student body that year to the Board of Trustees and the undergraduate students, being the graduation speaker in 2000, to then it only take a press release with false accusations with no evidence to then make that kind of a rash decision. It shows that the lessons of Duke lacrosse 1.0 were not learned. But I've been willing to fight for 3.5 years through Duke lacrosse 2.0 because I do not want there to be a Duke lacrosse 3.0. And I think that's really, where we are. I mean, you've got to fight for the next generation. And that's what we're here for.
And you mentioned those no criminal investigations in the two locations where the allegations took place. There were black female DAs in both cities. One there's still one there in Durham, There was a black female DA in Boston. She now a U.S. attorney. And the question that I have always asked is that if someone wants justice, and those two black female DAs have said, if someone files a complaint with us, we are going to investigate this case. To your knowledge, has a complaint ever been filed in Boston or in Durham by your two accusers?
To my knowledge, Roland, no complaint has ever been filed, and I'll take it one step further. As you know, we reached out. If I could have filed a complaint on myself, I would have done it because I would have at least initiated an investigation, started due process, and this smear campaign would have unraveled 3.5 years ago. And so, again, it's been very intentional, this effort to avoid any investigation of any kind. And what's also fascinating is the hypocrisy. The attorneys, very high profile, multi-million-dollar attorneys for these accusers, Deborah Katz and Nancy Erica Smith, they have vociferously called for investigations in other very similar cases. During the Supreme Court hearings with Justice Kavanaugh, they begged for the FBI to be involved and said, asked, why don't you want the FBI involved? Why don't you want this investigated? Why won't you take a lie detector test? And then months later, when these accusations were made by these attorneys against me, these false accusations, they all of a sudden do a complete 180 and don't want any of that. They want no investigations. They want no FBI. They want no lie detector tests. And as you know, I took and passed 2 lie detector tests, took them voluntarily. And in fact, I took them from the exact same ex-FBI agent that Deborah Katz hired to test Dr. Christine Blasey Ford. And so it's the rules change, right? It's because the goal was not the truth on their end. The goal was to smear me, right? The goal was to block me from the governorship in an emergency situation, in case of emergency, breakout smear campaign. And that's what this was. And I knew that from day one. But I really do think that there is something far bigger and more important going on here. And so even as we clear, my name and my family's name, I think there's something so much bigger and more important going on here. I think that we are reestablishing in this country the importance of due process, the importance of the rule of law, the importance of elevating our politics. You think a lot of people would not have been able to survive this kind of an onslaught, but I survived it with a few basic things. Number 1, the truth. Number 2, faith. Number 3, family. And number 4, my love of the people of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I've had such incredible, again, role models to do this. Governor Doug Wilder has really been a political North Star for me for a long time. He has been through horrific things in his life and in his career, and he's always come out smiling and fighting and trusting in the people of Virginia. He's always been for them, and he's always told me to trust the people. And again, Bobby Scott, Mark Warner, these are people who at the height of these accusations, the beginning of the smear campaign, they stood up with courage, and they said, we're going to stand up for the rule of law, for what matters. That I wouldn't want this done to me or my family member, and I don't want it done to Justin Fairfax or his family member. I wouldn't want this done to Terry McAuliffe or to the mayor of Richmond. I wouldn't want someone to come out with a piece of paper and 3 minutes later call for their resignation and for them to, lose everything that they've ever worked for. Because you know what? There's something more important than politics. There's honesty, there's integrity. There is uplifting people rather than destroying them. And one irony, Roland, as you know, my last name is Fairfax. I got it because Lord Fairfax freed my great-great-great-grandfather in 1798. I learned that right before I took the oath of office as lieutenant governor. My father, incredible man, Roger Fairfax Sr., handed me the piece of paper 20 minutes before I took the oath of office. And what was really ironic about that was we first learned about the first false accusation right around that time. So just as I am learning how my family got this name from 220 years ago, you have people who were setting out to destroy it. And I knew that there was something bigger, that I was being called to do something way bigger than just exist in politics and to just play political games and raise money and attack people. I think I was actually put there for a reason. And you got to go through things. As a judge who I clerked for and I love, Judge Cheryl Owsley always tells me, you cannot have a testimony without a test. And boy, what a test this has been over 3.5 years. But I think we're coming out of it even stronger, walking prouder. And I should also say this, it's been fascinating. You have the attorneys, Deborah Katz and Nancy Erica Smith, in so many ways, they've silenced, these two African-American women. Meredith Watson has not been heard from in 3.5 years. It's just her attorney, Nancy Erica Smith, continues to make statements bombastically going after me. And I've sort of just let the truth speak for itself. And so the more they talk, the more they attack me. I think it just reminds people not only that these were baseless accusations and not true and a smear campaign, but I think it also reminds people that, you know what, it's worth fighting for when you believe in something, when you believe in the people, when you're in this for the right reasons. We gave up, a lot in the private sector to be in public service because that's where my heart is, that my heart is always with the people. It's what people did for me, right? Gave me spiritual wealth. I have a spiritual debt. And that's what got me in politics, and that's what got me through the smear campaign. And so I know Duke is going to do the right thing. I frankly think New York Public Radio is going to do the right thing. I think all those who rush to judgment are going to do the right thing. And Roland, let me just say you were extraordinary, not just in this situation, in this moment, but really, in America. I mean, you're providing a voice to so many people who don't have one. And you always stand up for the truth. You have courage. I remember when this first happened, you had so many media outlets just repeating basically the accusations, throwing my name around with these horrific words, that things I've never done. But you said, let's take a step back and let's look at due process. Why is there no investigation? Why does the accused ask for an investigation, but those making the accusations not want them? Why are attorneys for these accusers acting as essentially private prosecutors? And that's a fascinating development. I used to be a federal prosecutor, as you know. They want all the consequential powers of being a prosecutor and none of the responsibilities. Right? As a prosecutor, you are out to do justice, about fairness. If you get evidence that something did not happen, you get exonerating evidence, you put that forward. If you don't do it, and you don't acknowledge it, it's called a Brady violation. It's one of the worst things you can do as a prosecutor, to continue accusing someone when you have evidence that they didn't do it. And so, again, we're seeing this. They like to indict you with a press release. Right? Rather than a grand jury, let me dash out an email to the press, get a headline, and that's your indictment, right? No due process. They will convict you with a headline. So Roland, thank you for standing up, and God bless you. This is all unraveling, and I think it's going to take us to higher ground.
All right, Justin Fairfax, we certainly appreciate you joining us on Roland Martin Unfiltered, and we'll see what happens next in this case.
Thanks so much. God bless you. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thanks a bunch, folks. Of course, we also are reaching out to attorneys for both women who made accusations to Justin Fairfax, inviting them on the show as well to share their thoughts with regards to this case. Gotta go to a break and come back. My panel and I will dissect my interview with former Virginia Team Governor Justin Fairfax. You're watching Roland Martin Culture, the Black Star Network. Folks, if you're on YouTube or Facebook, hit that like button, hit that share button. Let's hit 1,000 likes. Let's not wait for the last 2 hours to do so. And, of course, download the Black Star Network app, available on all platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And please join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollar allows for us to do what we do. P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. That's for checks and money orders. Cash App, $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
On the next Get Wealthy with me, Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, you see the headlines. All frightening, right? Interest rates are going up. The recession is on the way. The stock market is up and down. But you know what they say. Scared money don't make money. That's why I'm excited on our next Get Wealthy to have a conversation with someone who has written a new book, Fearless Finances, and she's going to share exactly what you need to do to secure your bag regardless of the ups and downs of the economy or the stock market.
Oftentimes you can start with as little as $5.
That's right here, only on Get Wealthy on Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Vivian Green.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. We were just, again, having that conversation with Justin Fairfax, and now I want to bring in my panel who joins me right now. I'm glad to have them here. Let's get right into this breakdown here. Let's see here. Sorry, y'all. I had to take the glasses off here. It's a little bright out here in Florida as I'm sitting on the balcony here. Let's see here. Glad to have my folks in the house. Let's first up. Hello, Nola Haynes. She's Georgetown University School of Foreign Service. Nola, how you doing? Robert Patillo, Executive Director of Rainbow Push Coalition Peach Street Project at Larry J. Walker, Assistant Professor, University of Central Florida. Glad to have you here. Robert, I'll start with you. You'll be the resident attorney on this panel. Just your thoughts and assessment of what you heard there, this lawsuit that Justin Fairfax has filed against the New York Public Radio station, and also what he is calling this rush to judgment against him from so many different people that derailed his once promising and bright political career.
Absolutely, and I think it's a very important lesson that we learned. We did this topic a few years ago when the allegations first came down, and this is very much what I said Justin Fairfax should do. Fight this to the ends of the earth. Take it to the mat. Far too often what we've seen in public life is individuals simply slink away and not want to fight in the public arena. If you're innocent, get out there and fight for your innocence and clear your name. And I want people...
Wait a minute, wait, hold on, Robert, hold up.
Mm-hmm.
But did you at one point say, though, that he should have resigned and fight?
I said step down and fight it. To devote your full time to fighting it 100% of the time. And I was just going to make.
But he chose not to step down, and the accusers said they were willing to participate in an impeachment hearing, and that's also what caused a lot of people like, wait a minute, hold up. You say you don't want to engage in a civil suit, but you will engage in an impeachment hearing. So why not file a criminal complaint? But go ahead.
Yeah, that's the point that I was just going to make, that I felt that he should have stepped down because it was clearly a political hit job, and there was clearly something coming from inside of the Democratic Party where Terry McAuliffe, for some reason, thought that he could win another term by kneecapping Justin Fairfax. And I thought that he should have stepped down, fought this out through the court system, had a judgment on his side, and then ran for governor last term. And we wouldn't see Glenn Youngkin in the governor's mansion right now if that had occurred. He chose to stay in there and continue to fight and continue to clear his name. And I think we're seeing this more often. Last night, Al Franken, who you brought up, was hosting Jimmy Kimmel because what he did was step down from office, fight to clear his name, and now he's reemerging into public life. And I think that's part of what separates Republicans from Democrats, that Republicans, you have Donald Trump, who's accused of 26 separate accusations of sexual misconduct and sexual assault. Nothing happens from it. Herschel Walker, who is accused of beating several women, stalking multiple women, assaulting multiple women, and there's absolutely no consequence because on their side of the aisle, that is not disqualifying. But I do feel that we have to start allowing individuals to fight to clear their names, because if there's no evidence against you, we can't simply say, well, an accusation is a conviction. And we're seeing this more and more. We see this with Deshaun Watson, who took a year off from football, fought to clear his name the best that he could, and now he's returning for a $230 million contract. And I think that the lesson is that if you are innocent, don't just lay down, don't just take it. Fight for your innocence, fight for your name. And I think the American people are seeing more and more that when people are innocent, they are willing to fight to clear their names.
Nola.
As the only woman on the panel, and thinking about it in the context of Me Too, because I think that you definitely have to bring that into the analysis and the timing of all of this. And, during the Me Too movement, one of the slogans were, I believe the victims. And so because that was such a moment where women were coming forward and they were speaking up, and oftentimes when we do speak up, we're still not believed. And if you have any level of a platform, if you have resources, it's pretty easy to silence women. It's pretty easy to also have, hit jobs against the accusers. But with that said, I also do believe in innocent until proven guilty. And so I think that one of the criticisms of the Me Too movement was that as soon as someone came forward and said that something happened, then that person just completely lost all credibility and pretty much their entire professional lives without any level of investigation, with just a simple accusation. And with the fervor and with the energy of social media, once people, hear that call that goes out, people pile on, and then they add to it, and it snowballs, and it becomes something. It becomes a life of its own, to where the people that are caught up in it, their lives are no longer their own because other people are kind of creating narratives for them. So, it's kind of an interesting situation. I did read the case, before we all came on, and some of the people that are involved are, people that also have sterling reputations, and so I'm just eager to see, what the legal process will be, what the outcome will be, because a lot of people are involved, and I don't want to see anybody who's not guilty of something to lose their entire lives, nor do I want the Me Too movement to lose our credibility and to lose our steam, because, people are fighting back, mostly men are fighting back. But I also want to say one last thing to that point. I'm very curious about the motivations of the women, that did make the accusations, because if we're saying that it's not true, then what motivated them to do it? And so that's something that I'm very interested in to hear going forward. But I'm not going to draw any conclusions the way that I haven't drawn any conclusions. I want to see, what the kind of final legal result will be, and I'm very curious about the motivations of the women if it's not true.
Larry, I think part of the problem here is that there's no clearly defined legal route. For instance, as I said, allegations were made, and that the lawyers for the women, the two accusers, said they were willing to participate in an impeachment hearing, and some Republicans wanted to do that. What I still to this day don't understand, and I really don't, what I don't understand is that if the goal was to hold Justin Fairfax accountable, and you had two black female district attorneys in Boston and Durham, who both were on the record.
We lost Roland.
Well, I guess while we're working on getting Roland back reestablished, Larry, could you chime in what you think should happen in the Fairfax case? Because I think many people have these questions about the logical inferences that can be drawn from the accusations, but the problem that is established is that there's a lack of proof there. How do you prove yourself innocent in a case like this? What do you think should be the standard going forward?
Yeah, I think this is a complicated issue, and as my colleague just mentioned, what will be the motivation for these women making these accusations? And so I think there's a few things to unpack as we've dealt with this issue the last couple of years. And I think also we have to note that, women historically don't feel like the system works towards the truth when it comes to issues relating to these kind of sexual assault. So I think that's really important to highlight. But the counter to that is also in terms of justice. And how do you ensure in this social media age, when these kind of accusations are made against a well-known politician, how do you ensure that it plays out, that the wheels of justice turn in the right direction? And I would be really interested if Roland talked about reaching out to the attorneys for the two individuals who made the accusations, in terms of coming on the show and unpacking for us, some of the individuals that they're representing, in terms of talking about their story and maybe some of the reasons why they decided they talked more about impeachment and less about, civil suits. So, but once again, I think this is like a puzzle with a lot of missing pieces. And ultimately, like I said, Mr. Fairfax highlighted his case for it. But I think it's important, once again, to acknowledge that historically powerful men have had, in their position, been able to, in many respects, ensure that there are ways in which victims don't speak up. And like I said, that's really important to highlight. But I'm ultimately interested in the truth. We know, and I'm also interested in terms of Mr. Fairfax, in terms of what, for him specifically, because of what's happened to his reputation, is obviously his political career. What is the end game in terms of, if there's a verdict, what if this was never resolved and these accusations are just out there? What's the next step in terms of his political or professional career? But like I said, this is a jigsaw puzzle with a lot of missing pieces that none of us have. And that's why I think it's really important to hear those that made the accusations. If not them, there's certainly their attorneys to come out and come on the show or various other platforms and talk about tell their story, so we have something to compare it against. And listening to Mr. Fairfax today.
Absolutely. And I think the part of it is just this evolving legal system. It's traditionally been innocent until proven guilty, but with the context given currently, we have to evolve those standards. We're going to go to a quick commercial, try to reestablish Roland. We'll be back after the break.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
On a Next to Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner, and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a Next, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Next, on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr, a conversation with Professor Toyin Falola, a man described by many as an African intellectual legend. He is without a doubt the most important and prolific writer, thinker, teacher, and servant of African studies in the modern world.
And then today, we have George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters, and the re-emergence of radical Black thought.
We're honored to welcome him to a very special, can't miss episode of The Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
Hello everyone, it's Kiara Sheard.
Hey, I'm Taj.
I'm Coco.
And I'm Lily. And we're SWV.
What's up, y'all? It's Ryan Destiny, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
All right, folks, welcome back. Sorry about that. I had a slight technical issue, so I had to switch phones. So here's the thing that, and before I go to our next guest, that I think that has to be said. I'm taking into account everything that Robert said, Nola said, Larry said. I'm taking into account the allegations from these women that what Justin Fairfax has said. What I am still confused by, and I would love to hear the attorneys for these two women answer this question. If you had two Black female DAs in Boston and Durham, who both were on record as saying if a criminal complaint was filed, they would investigate fully, why did these women and attorneys not file a complaint? Because if you say you participate in an impeachment hearing, which is testimony, which is public, then why not file the complaint? The statute of limitations didn't apply here. And that's the one thing that I still don't understand why that didn't happen. I'm still confused by that. And absolutely, I get the concept of believe the women. But also, you have to have a situation where there is due process, because you don't want someone making an allegation that simply isn't true. I bring up the case that were the days before the Super Bowl, there was a woman who accused Snoop Dogg of raping her. That story, that fell apart literally in days. Same thing with Chris Brown. And there were attorneys who actually came out publicly and made statements. And so the problem here, because Nolan, when you asked about where do you go next, the reality is there is no legal roadmap. There's no civil suit that's been filed. There's no criminal complaint been filed. So what you have here is an allegation that's just sitting out there in the public space, and so the women can't get it affirmed, and Fairfax can't get his name cleared. So in essence, it's just sitting there. And if I'm Justin Fairfax, I'm doing exactly what he's doing. I can clear my name. If I'm those women and their attorneys, then I'm holding my position, but that's sort of where we are. You literally have no legal pathway moving forward because and as Fairfax said, if I could have filed a criminal complaint against myself, I would have, but he can't. And so this case right now is just sort of sitting here, and if you're him, that's always around over your head, and it's probably it clearly cost him the Democratic nomination, cost him the governor's mansion. It probably cost him financially as well. And so that's what. But and so again, we're going to reach out to the attorneys for both. I would love for them to answer that question. Why was no complaint ever filed when you had black women who were the DAs who said they would investigate? I still am. That's the one thing that still is mind-boggling to me why that hasn't been done, and I'm not quite sure why. Folks, let's go to our next story, and that is with how Facebook is profiting from white supremacist group. Now, anybody who understands technology, we know that when you look on social media, how the hard right and how white supremacists, how they have been highly involved in using Facebook to spread their nonsense, to spread their message. Well, last week, the folks at Tech Transparency Project found ads monetizing search results from over 80 white supremacist groups. The organization discovered that Facebook searches for some groups with Ku Klux Klan in their name generated ads for black churches, highlighting minority institutions to a user searching for white supremacist content. In 2019, Facebook announced that it would ban white nationalist and white separatist content, adding to its existing ban on white supremacist content. Katie Paul, the director and spokesperson for the Tech Transparency Project, who joined us from D.C. So, Katie, glad to have you here. So, essentially, y'all are saying that Facebook is profiting from white supremacy, from racism.
Yes, absolutely. Facebook's not just profiting from racism, but it's also creating potential dangerous situations for minority groups that unknowingly are having their ads surfaced in searches for groups like the KKK.
So how does that work? So if you type in KKK in Facebook, what's coming up?
So when we conducted this experiment, Facebook is trying to be like Google and trying to monetize every aspect of its service. And in doing so, it monetized searches, suggesting to advertisers that those searches would be, the ads would be contextually relevant to the searches. So when you search Honorable Sacred Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, the searches that were popping up were for black churches. Now, of course, Facebook, pulls from data you have and tries to serve up ads it thinks that are relevant to you. So important context here is that we conducted this experiment on a militia styled account that we've been monitoring for years to mimic the far right. So there's no reason, even in terms of the historic data of that account, that content should have been showing up, which was deeply concerning.
Has Facebook had any response to your study?
When our study was published by the Washington Post, Facebook said that they immediately rectified the situation, and we have gone back and checked. Some of the searches have been demonetized, certainly not all of the searches in our study. But the fact that Facebook did move quickly to demonetize searches after this report is notable, because anybody who's been watching the Facebook space for a while knows that the company is usually quite defiant and doesn't move quickly on anything unless they think there's going to be some sort of serious blowback. And that's clearly what we're seeing happen here. The bigger question is, with a system, one of the most sophisticated social media platforms in the world, why were these searches monetized in the first place? Facebook has its own list of dangerous individuals and organizations, and one of the images you're showing right here shows that their own systems recognize some of these searches as violating their terms of service, yet they were monetizing them anyway. And the question is why? And how much money are they making off of these businesses and churches and other organizations whose ads are being pushed in searches for this extremist content?
Questions from the panel. I'll first start with you, Larry.
Yeah, thank you for this. It's a very interesting study. My question is, first of all, we know that Facebook has been wink and nod, monetizing or in various ways, making money off of these groups that espouse, racist, homophobic, views, etc. But my question is, have you looked at other platforms to see what's Facebook doing? Does it mirror other platforms? And if it does, when you reached out to them or published your research, what was the feedback from those entities?
So we ran the exact same set of searches that we ran on Facebook on Google, because Google also monetizes searches. And while some of the searches on Google were monetized, the searches for hate groups, the rate of monetization was more than 3 times higher. Really, it didn't even come close. And so Facebook was far, far worse in this space. And it's just another example of where the company has worked to move fast and break things without any consideration for the consequences or potential safety. And I think it's important to note, Facebook is aware that this search monetization issue is problematic, because we raised it months ago with the New York Times when Facebook had monetized searches for the full live stream of the Buffalo shooters video. They actually ran the video in searches right alongside ads for things like a masterclass in live streaming. So the platform is aware that it has these problematic search monetization features, but it's not moving to address them unless directly called out in public spaces.
Nola.
Thank you so much for this particular project. As a social scientist, this is very exciting to me. So my question is a little broader. I tend to think about these things in misinformation and disinformation context, or even this particular issue. I have some very strong feelings about the First Amendment, and when it comes to the lack of protections regarding hate speech, it's there, but I don't think that the exception is strong enough. So I'm curious if some of the resistance that you receive from Facebook, is it kind of is it couched in its language around protection of First Amendment speech?
Well, that's a fantastic question. And absolutely, the First Amendment issues are something that Facebook has used to hide behind as a shield when pressed by Congress as to why they shouldn't be regulated. And, we're not just talking about issues of hate speech. Facebook also platforms terrorist groups that are designated. It allows the trafficking of a variety of endangered wildlife. None of these things can be protected by free speech, but they all have the commonality that the platform makes no effort to moderate them. And, as a private company, company, Facebook can certainly address free speech. We see that it does clamp down on certain groups. Famously, before the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, which was organized through a Facebook event, Facebook removed the event for a counter-protest, but not the event for the Unite the Right until the day before. So there are plenty of times where they've made the decisions to remove content that they deemed violating. And this is just one other example of where they're really dropping the ball in the name of profit. And I think it's also important to note, Facebook has its own list of organizations that are banned, whether it's terrorist groups or white supremacist groups. And that's one of the lists we drew from for this research. And Facebook actually auto-generates business pages for some of these groups. So we identified a page for the Proud Boys that had been auto-generated by Facebook 2 months after the insurrection, despite the fact that that group has been banned on the platform since 2018.
Wow.
Robert.
This is absolutely great work. We've been here since, I think, 2015, both Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren calling for Facebook and other social media companies to be regulated as a public utility because of the amount of disinformation that we were seeing in the 2016 campaign cycle. Similarly, and for different reasons, we've seen many of the conservative side of the aisle claim that big tech is now censoring them and have called for additional regulations. What are the chances for there being actual legislative action taken to regulate some of these large tech companies as public utilities, so they will have to actually answer and address the First Amendment to stop many of these deleterious actions from taking place on their platforms?
Well, in terms of regulating them specifically as a public utility, I'm not sure about the chances of that. But I will say, having watched this space and been in Washington for a long time, this is probably one of the strongest bipartisan issues we've seen in many years, particularly when we get to issues like children and the effects of social media on children. This is a group that, regardless of party, people are interested in. And we are starting to see a lot of bipartisan interaction to push for regulation. We see Senator Blumenthal and Senator Blackburn really coordinating and working together following the release of the Facebook files, which essentially was a whistleblower proving that all of the things researchers like those at the Tech Transparency Project have been showing from the outside for years, Facebook has been well aware of and buried the effects rather than address the problems in the name of profit. So I think that when you have the combination of outside research and the investigative research that our group and others do, as well as these whistleblower documents, there's a very strong chance that the company is going to be further regulated. And I think it's also important to note in the recent FTC filing against Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg himself was actually named as liable in that particular case. And Facebook just several years ago paid an extra multi-billion-dollar fine to the FCC to ensure that Mark Zuckerberg was not being held personally liable. So it's clear that regulators are starting to really kind of crack through the veneer and not buying the kind of PR window dressing they're getting from these tech companies anymore. I think Congress has wised up to the broader business model and the effects on society.
All right, then. Well, Katie, Michelle, appreciate you joining us right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, then. And folks, let me remind y'all, we continue to have our own issues with Facebook. I told you a few weeks ago, I sent an email to several folks at Facebook trying to get an understanding as to why our page has been throttled. What I mean by that is many of you who follow this show on Facebook, you won't no longer get your live notification when we go live. We used to have literally, if we ended the show, we might have anywhere from 60 to 70 or 80 or 100,000 views on Facebook. We would have a number of folks, and I'm talking about, I'm looking right now, looking at the numbers. I mean, I'm talking about the numbers are, they rarely ever exceed 250 views. So what has happened is, so what Facebook is doing is, I mean, and again, I've had two different people at Facebook email me to say, hey, we know there's a problem, something about numbers, but there's a glitch in our system. And I'm sitting there going, y'all keep telling me there's a glitch. Why in the hell the glitch ain't fixed? And so what the strategy is, so literally I got 1.3 million people who follow me on my Facebook page. So really what Facebook wants me to do, They want me to pay them to boost to the folk who already follow me. The people who already said, click my live notification. And that's for real. And they can't say, well, it's just, sort of content. No, that's not what it is. Because when I used to even go live just to do a live stream, well, we would hit 1,500, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. There was a point when we would have, I think we ran a Jane Elliott, the town hall she and I did, panel at the University of Michigan. We had 10,000 folks on Facebook watching that thing live at 1 o'clock in the morning. That doesn't happen now. So there's no doubt in my mind that Facebook's algorithm is purposely throttling us down to force us to pay to reach the people who are already reached. And so that's why, like I told you all, we created the Black Star Network app. That's why we're doing our own thing, because we can't sit here and afford to have these tech platforms determine who gets to see our message and who doesn't. With that, I'm going to go to a break and come back. More on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Please follow us and support us. Again, download the Black Star Network app. All platforms: Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And also join our Bring the Funk fan club. Your dollars makes it possible for us to be able to cover stores all across the country. You can send a check on money order to PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
I challenge myself as an artist and knowing that I'm going to challenge the audience, right? So oftentimes you come into this business off of one project where everybody's like, ooh, you stand out. Okay, for me it was Barbershop, Ricky, da-da-da-da-da-da. Ricky was nothing like me growing up, right? Nothing like me growing up. But if that's people's first experience with you, right, as an audience member, they tend to think that's the real you, right? So, for me, after that, I got a whole bunch of offers to play roles just like Ricky, right? This Tupac-esque type of thug, right? And I just said no over and over again. And then you keep trying to do other things. Then I went through a series of romantic movies and romantic leads, and I always try to bring some sort of gravitas to those roles. And then it was like, okay, well, but before I get into all of that, let me hit y'all with, For Color Girls, and, step outside of the realm of, what you expect of me to do as an audience member in terms of being this romantic lead and everything. Because I didn't get into this business to be the romantic lead, that dude. Like, I didn't get into this business. You can get locked in. You can totally get locked in.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Next, on the Black Table, with me, Greg Carr, a conversation with Professor Toyin Falola, a man described by many as an African intellectual legend. He is without a doubt the most important and prolific writer, thinker, teacher, and servant of African studies in the modern world.
And then today, we have George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters, and the re-emergence of radical Black thought.
We're honored to welcome him to a very special, can't miss episode of The Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hey, I'm Arnaz J. Black TV does matter, dang it.
Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
Stay woke.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland Martin Unfiltered. Glad to have you here on today's show. When we look at news of the day, we cover a lot of these stories, and we spend a lot of time focusing on, again, how we are impacted, and the story dealing with police cases and how folks have loss of life, and it is always shocking to us, in terms of when we see these cases. And one of the things that happens is that we often talk about the victim, but we don't talk about the impact on the families. We don't talk about what it means to them. We don't talk about how they have to go through life and are dealing with these cases. And one of them that got our attention, and we want to talk about, is a documentary is being done about this particular case. And it deals with a young man who lost his life. His name is Cary Owsley, or Owsley, I'm sorry. He was found dead in the home he shared with his estranged wife, Lisa, on April 7, 2013. Now, his death was ruled a homicide. The first officer on the scene was Lisa Owsley's ex-husband, Dwayne James Sr., and the father to her two adult sons, Dwayne Jr. and Joshua. Though there are those who believe the investigation was botched and Owsley was murdered. Joining us right now is his sister, Cheryl Jackson, and Andrea Morehead Allen, Clover Lane media executive producer from Brackney, Florida. Glad to have both of you here.
Thank you.
First question. So, how long was Kerry and Lisa married?
They were only married for less than 3 years. From the moment, to be clear, Cary Owsley is the only person of color in this story. He was married to a white woman briefly for about 2.5 years. Her adult sons hated him from the jump. They were on social media talking about how much they hated him, threatening to kill him, calling him the N-word. They, from the very beginning, started to harass him. Later, she kind of turned against him as well. And so the day Kerry dies, he's actually moving out of the house with his truck backed up to the door. He calls his own son to come and help him move. And when my nephew gets out there, my brother has been shot to death, gunshot to the heart. And the cop dad is the first guy on the scene. He's off duty. My brother dies with his personal gun. His death is then ruled a suicide. The cop dad admits in his own police report that he watched someone burn the chair my brother died in, that he took the bloody rug from under my brother's body and put it in his own car, even though he was off duty, and led an investigation that ruled his death a suicide.
Wait, I'm sorry, hold on. So, I'm trying to understand here. So, her ex-husband is first on the scene, but he's not on duty.
Not on duty. Called there by one of his sons.
Okay, so one of the sons calls the ex-husband, who's a cop.
Yes.
So no one called the actual cops?
No, not until we believe hours later. So, in the end, what happens is they won't do an autopsy on his body, even though it's protocol in Indiana. But later we earned the right, because Harvard Justice gets involved, Ron Sullivan from Harvard Justice, you may know him, Trent McCain out of Gary, Indiana, they get involved, and we exhume my brother's body a year later. And there is a forensic expert who was called as a witness on the George Floyd case, who says, flat out, I do not believe Cary Owsley killed himself. Cary Owsley would have been standing on his head to have shot himself. And again, why are there 2 bullet holes behind Kerry? So this has been a 9-year fight. And as Andrea and I have been on the phone discussing, your show is the first show that we've been on
where we are going to be talking about what happened yesterday, and that is the appellate court in Indiana threw this case out again, and they are not allowing my brother's only heir to continue a federal civil rights lawsuit that we have been in the process of creating for more than a decade.
Okay. So an autopsy wasn't done on him?
No, not at the time of both my mother and I.
So who ruled it a homicide? I'm sorry. Who ruled it a suicide?
The coroner on the scene, and then when we interviewed him later, when a news team caught up with him, he said, hey, I could tell by looking it was a suicide. So I say, hey, you can't determine, we wouldn't even need autopsies, right? If you can determine by looking at someone that this is a suicide. So there was
So as somebody who's covered many stories, if he killed himself, that means there'll be gunpowder on his hands. That's why you do an autopsy. You check the trajectory of the bullet. That's why you do an autopsy. You check blood splatter to determine all of that. So this coroner on the scene looks at it and goes, "Oh, suicide. We're done. That's it."
That's it. That's it.
Now,
and so, being a journalist,
so the ex-husband shows up. Okay, the ex-husband shows up. Are there any records as to it was a 911 call ever placed, and how much later was it placed, and like what's the timeline of when the police showed up? Not the ex-cop who's not the ex-husband cop who's off duty.
Yeah, that's what we don't know for sure, but we do know that when she calls 911, his wife, she's not concerned at all with saving him. To be clear, my brother is gasping for air. She calls, she thinks he's dead, and then you can hear him gasping for air for almost 5 minutes. Neither she or the 911 operator ever say how they might help him. She says every now and then, hey, he's gasping again. The 911 operator says nothing, to which I believe that tape has been altered. So she talks about getting the dogs out of the blood. She talks about a window screen out, some windows down. She talks about everything except saving him. And so she finally calls 911. She thinks he's dead. She tells the 911 operator he's dead. And then he gasps so audibly that the 911 operator can hear him. And so she begins to talk about him gasping. And then because I'm a journalist, I know that she can't, the cops will not go inside because she says she can't find the gun for almost 5 minutes until he dies. So until that gun is secured, police won't go in. But I say, how far can a gun go when you supposedly shot yourself with it? It has to be right.
If you shot yourself, the gun likely falls right next to wherever you are. This is so. So Andrea, y'all have been working on this, and so you've been following this, and literally, there's no one is curious, and no court system is saying, "Hey, this don't sound right."
You know what, Roland, your first reaction was my reaction, and you're right. It don't sound right. It ain't right. The facts and the evidence and what we've been told, they don't match. And as journalists, we're in this business to hold people accountable. We're in the business to speak truth to power. We're in the business to make sure that we're fair and accurate in our reporting. And when this case first came to me via Cheryl and another journalist, I sat there going, how could this happen in America? But yet we do know that justice sometimes is denied for people who look like us. And I told Cheryl that I would join her in this fight. I have a heart for cases like this, being a 30-year seasoned, veteran journalist back in Indianapolis for over 21 years. These kinds of cases that typically come into our newsrooms, they are, especially if the victim is white, those cases are adjudicated pretty quickly. They have the victim, they've got the suspect, and they're arrested, and then they're on the news announcing, hey, we found the suspect, and this person's going to be held accountable. This case here is about as simple as it comes when we look at the evidence and we look at the truth. And for no one to hear Cheryl, she has been asking, begging, pleading, protesting for the last almost 10 years. For no one to look at the information, to look at the evidence and say, something's not right here, and to do something about it, it's just unconscionable. And here we are with the CNN reporter, Cheryl, former CNN reporter, veteran journalist and educator, teaching journalism to students across the nation for the last 15 years. If this can happen to her, it can happen to any of us. And so we have been pleading to somehow get this case in front of Attorney General Merrick Garland. And I can tell you last week, a couple of weeks ago, when we found out that they decided to go ahead and file charges against those officers in the Breonna Taylor case, Cheryl and I said, yes, maybe now we can possibly get this case in front of them as well. And for them to look at this case and to have an independent investigation. Everything that should have taken place as it relates to this investigation didn't happen. That's a problem.
Yeah. And you know, Roland, the details are egregious. They're not superficial. You know, I started collecting information like a journalist from the beginning. It's not hard to look at and say there's something wrong. To be clear, my brother, again, dies with this cop's personal gun. How is that gun on my brother's property? He admits that. He admits in his own police report, he touches the body, he touches the gun, he takes the bloody rug home, he watches someone, he puts in quotation marks, burn the chair my brother dies in, and helps lead an investigation that rules this a suicide. And then we exhume the body after a fight. We hire a Dr. Warner Spitz, who is world-renowned forensic expert. And when we exhume his body, we find out he is 1 year later in standing water, which means the vault was not closed and his body was not preserved correctly. And so, you know, you can exhume a body 20 years later and it's preserved. And so that's what we thought we were getting. Nobody works this hard to cover up a suicide. So when we find out that not only is his body in standing water, they have literally scraped over the wound after death. Both the court ordered pathologist and the one we hired said they have scraped over the wound after death so that you cannot determine how close the gun was when he killed himself. So again, I say nobody works this hard to cover up a suicide.
It's a classic case of cover up.
And go back to, and I know my panel has questions, so Robert, Nolan, Larry, I'm coming to y'all after this answer here. So the ex-husband cop admits to disposing of evidence?
Yes. In his own police report, he admits that he took the bloody...
Wait a minute. Why is he doing a police report?
That's what we want to know.
He wasn't on duty.
That's right.
That's what we want to know.
You're right.
So what did he admit in the police report of disposing?
He admits that he took the bloody rug from under my brother's body and put it in his own car. He admits, and he has in quotation marks, he watched someone burn the chair my brother died in the backyard, like this is the 1960s South. He admits to touching every piece of evidence in the crime scene. And to be clear, when I find out about this, I'm on a Match.com date in Chicago. I was living in Chicago at the time, and the guy happens to be a Chicago detective. He ends up being the key to me understanding the evidence. He and I are at a coffee shop. We're talking. He goes to the restroom. When I turn my phone over, everyone in my life has called me to tell me my brother is dead. This cop starts telling me, he said, if I did what this cop did on the crime scene, I would be in the Cook County Jail in my uniform. He said he touched every piece of evidence in the crime scene. And when I asked him why he thought he did that, he said, to make sure that you understand this crime scene is contaminated and you'll never find the truth.
Documented.
Questions, Robert, I'll start with you.
This is an absolutely harrowing tale, and I hope we find justice in this case. Has there been any effort by the family to hire their own private forensic investigator to compile a report on this case? And what, beyond the local authorities, have you talked to the state level authorities to investigate, or even to the Federal Bureau of Investigations?
Yes, so I mentioned earlier Dr. Bill Smock, who was called as an expert on the George Floyd case, is out of Louisville. He's called a police surgeon. He happens to be teaching a gunshot wound and trajectory workshop in Indiana to Indiana State Police. That's how much the system trusts him. He's also been an FBI consultant. He looks at our case. So one of the police officers in the workshop says, "Have you heard about the Cary Owsley case?" And he said, "No, but if they'll send me the autopsy video, I'll take a look at it." And he says, he goes on the news. I mean, never paid by us. He's not hired by us. And he says, I believe this crime scene is staged because my brother's chair was turned over. And he said, in life, no gun blows you back like in the movies, especially not a Cal Walter PPK, which is a very small gun. So yeah, so then the authorities, after badgering them, they say they'll turn it over to the FBI. And the state level FBI agent told me that the sheriff handed him a box and said, "This is all that was left when I got here. The gun is lost. The bullet has been lost. The clothes were destroyed. My brother's body was in standing water. The only thing they didn't destroy is the trajectory of the bullet." And that makes Dr. Smock believe that Kerry did not kill himself. So the FBI at the federal level rejects to move forward because they said they have no evidence. But the trick bag is that the Owsley family didn't destroy the evidence. The police did. So the evidence, they don't have it. So what is our remedy now? Because they destroyed the evidence. This is how a Black man gets murdered in America and people get away with it. It's all this. And if Andrea and I, as journalists, are breaking down the evidence, we're not, the average person is not equipped to do this. And we're breaking down this evidence. And Roland, I know you know my former student, Jasmine Miner, who works in news. She heard about this case when I was teaching her. And she also has been, looking through the evidence. And so we've been trying to figure out how to get someone on board. Even though we have a team of attorneys, Lovey and Lovey, I don't know if you've heard of them, out of Chicago. They are the ones who have gotten awards for people who have been the John Burge police officer who forced tortured people into, Black men specifically, into confessions in the 80s. They have been our attorneys working on contingency without pay for 5 or 6 years. And so attorneys don't do that if they don't believe there's something there. And Andrea and I got connected by Jasmine, and Andrea just said, "I want to tell this story." And that's how we end up here.
And let me tell you, a big part of the story, not to bury the lead here, is that, Cheryl went through all of the procedures to try to have this case independently investigated. And in the state of Indiana at the time, the governor was our former vice president, Mike Pence. And just keeping it real here, Cheryl, he could have called for an independent investigation, and he did not. So we have a lot of questions. We want to know why not. If it is as clean as they say it is, then let us have an independent investigation. If these people are as innocent as we've been told they are, then let us open an independent investigation, because we don't trust what they have done during this process. It's all been the worst of the worst in terms of procedure. Everything that should have been done was not done, and it was not done properly. The behavior from all of the participants in this case, unethical, unconscionable, against humanity. And that's what we're fighting for. This case must be held. These people must be held accountable for this heinous crime. And we believe that they are all sitting there in Columbus, Indiana, because they are aware that we are now moving forward with trying to get more people to hear about this case so that we can hopefully get an independent investigation by the Attorney General's office. And so we believe that they're scared. We believe that they're one or two of these people who are, some of the characters, if you will, in this brazen crime, that they want to tell the truth but have been afraid to tell the truth. They know what happened, and we're going to work as diligently as we can, as long as we have to find justice for Kerry.
And to be clear, the Mike Pence connection is not a superficial one. Mike is from my hometown. Mike and I are about the same age. I wrote a diversity column in the only newspaper in that town for 10 years. Mike knows exactly who I am. I was the diversity trainer for the police department, the mayor's office, the first diversity trainer ever in the school system in Columbus, Indiana. I'm not unknown to him. I went to see him 5 times. Mike Pence would not see me. Mike knows exactly who I am. And so he would not see me. He would not help me. In fact, former Representative Lee Hamilton, who works at Indiana University now, I went to see him. He called the Attorney General's office directly when Mike Pence was the governor of Indiana. They called me back directly and said they were going to look into it. Within a week, they called me back and said they were not. The only person that can call down the Attorney General's office is Mike Pence. Now, Mike Pence is connected to the people that we have involved in this federal civil rights lawsuit. They are people that he is at the county fair with. One of them says that when he gets chosen by Trump, they call him on his personal cell phone. They quote that in the newspaper. So Mike Pence did not miss this story about his hometown when the Indianapolis Star broke a series of stories, call it with my mother's picture, holding my brother's senior picture, saying tainted evidence, the headline, on a Saturday and Sunday series, and they threw that on the governor's mansion front porch. Mike did not miss that. And Andrea has already reached out to Mike for an independent interview. She's interviewed him throughout her career there. Mike knows who I am.
He knows who I am. And so far,
Question,
they have
Larry.
not responded to our emails.
Larry?
Yeah, thanks, Roland. First of all, thank you for bringing this important story on the show and talking about it in detail. I want to go back to the Sons. You talked about they were posting a lot of hate speech. I'm assuming, Facebook or some other social media platform. And obviously, you highlighted how they felt about him, and they made it clear. And I wonder what they said in their statements, in terms of what happened. Were they present first? And also, if they were, what statements they gave to authorities?
So both of them have superficial and multiple alibis. The one that I believe is likely to kill my brother, I've spoken public about it. I believe the younger son, who's in his late 20s at the time, I believe Josh James likely killed my brother. My brother was moving out. Josh was moving in again and again. He had a drug problem. My brother, there are numerous calls to police where my brother is fighting with them, physically fighting with them. My brother had enough of it after a couple of years. He was moving out. The younger son says he was not on the premises, and yet his alibi witnesses, there are two different alibis. The other son says that he's going to go for a ride on his motorcycle with another person. That person says he shows up and says that, he gets a call from his mom within 5 minutes saying my stepdad killed himself. When I post that, someone else calls me and says he was out to our house smoking weed and gets the same call and says my stepdad killed himself. So this is all creating alibis on this day. So we don't actually know the timeline. What I can tell you is they have multiple alibis, and I have those. I've collected every single thing that has happened. And I'll tell you this, not one person or official in that town has said Cheryl Jackson is a liar about anything I've said, because all I say is truth, and I can prove everything I say. So nobody ever just posts a story that says Cheryl Jackson tells lies, because I'm telling the truth. So both of them, yes. One of them says he wasn't there. I believe that's the one that killed him. There's a fury of phone calls back and forth between he and his mother, and then suddenly no calls, and then 911 is called. So I do believe he killed my brother, and he says he wasn't on the scene. The cop dad stays on the scene through the night, witnesses will say, helps clean the scene, sends the wife for bleach. The drywall truck stays out there for a week and repairs the drywall. And Dr. Bill Smock, the forensic guy from the George Floyd case, calls our sheriff and says, hey, I believe this crime scene is staged. Let's go in there, take another look where the bullet holes are, whatever. And the sheriff says, I'm not going to invade the privacy of this family. Absolutely not.
No, are you there?
I don't think he can hear. Oh, hi.
No, go with your question. You're on mute. I think you're on mute. Yeah, you're on mute. Control room, let me know what's going on. I can't hear her. Did we ever meet her, or is she on mute? I want to get her question before we go. All right, for some reason, we're not getting Nola's audio. So let's get that fixed. Y'all are working on a doc. What's the status of that? And is it near completion? Have you pitched it? We're on the air. Any details?
Andrea, you want to take that one?
Yeah, well, we've been working on, the three of us, Jasmine, myself, and Cheryl. We've been in a conference room for the last, 5 or 6 months and just kind of pouring over all the information, the evidence. And, our idea is to really speak about, not just about this case, but really race relations and how the justice system sometimes, for the most part, fails African Americans, especially when it comes to crimes like this. And so we have a comprehensive 9-part documentary that is slated. We have been in touch with some of the biggest powerhouse production companies across this nation. We have been in touch with other networks who know about this case. But yet, no one so far has said definitively, yes, we want to cover this case. We want to be part of this documentary. We want to find justice for Kerry and justice for Cary Owsley's family. And so this is where we are. We're trying to appeal to the masses. We're trying to appeal to the nation for them to hear the facts of this case and to help us push it forward. So we're still in the infancy stages, but we are prayerful that thankfully with your help, Roland, and everyone who is watching, that they will look at this and say, you know what, we as a people need to do something about this. This has to stop, because if we don't hold people accountable, it will happen again. And I'm sure that we are not the only story where there are people out there who are looking for justice, people who look like us, who have not been able to have their stories be told, whose voices haven't mattered. And we want to be the conduit to let them know that, hey, if we can do it, you can do it. We have to press people to do the right thing and to not back down. So as it relates to the documentary, we are just waiting for that phone call to come through. But in the meantime, we are still going to talk about this case. We are going to be on social media. We are bringing people to join us and to be in protest with us back in Columbus, Indiana. And we're also going to hopefully have people begin to sign a sheet to say, you know what, Merrick Garland, please open this case back up and have an independent investigation. So the ball is rolling, and we want everybody to join us and to help push us forward so that we can find justice for this family.
All right, Cheryl and Andrea.
Can I just say one other thing? Ron Sullivan from the Harvard Justice Institute, he's formerly the Justice Institute, said to me, this may not be the most egregious civil rights case in America, but it may be the one where we have the most evidence. Mm-hmm. We have investigative files that prove what we're saying. And in America, if you can have 100 pages of evidence, and Andrea and I've been on TV all over this nation, and we still do not have justice 9 years later. Today, I want to say that today, the appellate court in Illinois threw this case out without even hearing my attorneys who've been preparing for it for years. So
I heard nothing, no evidence, and just made a blanket decision to say no.
Got it. Cheryl and Andrea, we appreciate you coming on the show. Certainly let us know what happens with this moving forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, going to a break. When we come back, more on Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll talk with the fire and police chief of Charlottesville, Virginia. Why do cops in the department not want to work for her? And why did the city council fire her? She'll tell her story. We also have, of course, Tech Talk, and we hear from NFL players who are competing on America's Got Talent. All that right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Download the app, Black Star Network, available on all platforms, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, or TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV, and of course, you can join our Bring the Funk fan club. Check out money orders. Go to PO Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 007-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal or Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
On a Next to Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie. Summer is flying by and back to school is just around the corner and fall is here. That's right, a new season is upon us. On our next show, we talk about jumping into action and putting procrastination in the rearview mirror. That's on a Next, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie here on Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
We're all impacted by the culture, whether we know it or not. From politics to music and entertainment, it's a huge part of our lives, and we're going to talk about it every day right here on The Culture with me, Faraji Muhammad, only on the Black Star Network.
Next on The Black Table with me, Greg Carr, a conversation with Professor Toyin Falola, a man described by many as an African intellectual legend. He is without a doubt the most important and prolific writer, thinker, teacher, and servant of African studies in the modern world.
And then today, we have George Floyd, the Black Lives Matters, and the re-emergence of radical Black thought.
We're honored to welcome him to a very special, can't miss episode of The Black Table, only on the Black Star Network.
Hey, I'm Deion Cole from Blackish.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
All right, y'all, the first Black woman to lead the Charlottesville, Virginia Police Department has been fired. RaShall Brackney, she joined the tumultuous department after the Unite the Rally, leaving, of course, was left one person dead, others injured in 2017. She was trying to reform the police department, regain the public's trust, but before she could, she said she was wrongfully terminated. She joins us right now. She's a distinguished visiting professor of practice at George Mason University from Charlottesville, Virginia. Glad to have you here, Dr. Brackney. So I was reading several stories, and I mean, you were dealing with cops who, frankly, did not want to listen to you, did not want to follow your directives. They fought you at every turn. Explain your tenure as police chief.
So I wish it was as simple as that they fought me and didn't want to listen to me at every turn. It was actually much more vile. I started there in 2018 after the Unite the Right rally. The purpose that I was brought in for was my area of expertise in restorative justice, procedural justice, and my understanding that I was attempting to fuse justice into the criminal legal system when typically that does not happen in minority community. So that would have been fine, but what happened is I literally started investigating white male officers for racist, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, homophobic behaviors, and that led to the city deciding that I was no longer fit to be the leader of that department.
Wait. You are literally investigating these things, and the city goes, no, we're good, even though you would want that stuff not in your police department.
You would actually think that is the case, but you're exactly right. I had been there for about 3.5 years, and in June of 2021, I received a video about one of our officers in uniform on city cell phones, basically saying that they wanted to get back to the hood so they could do hood gangster shit. And I started an investigation. All the things they were doing them on city phones. And not only were they on the city phones, they were sharing these recordings. They were recording nude women, passing those around, using racial slurs that officers' skins, Black officers who were recruits, their skin was getting whiter and whiter the more they worked with the field training officers. They had text messages that they wanted to take out officers who they believed were snitching. They had text messages that they wanted to take out the command staff, myself, the top 4, and let God sort it out. They were making comments about Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd marches, that they were interested in letting off some steam through violence. They were recording their body-worn cameras and blocking views when they were committing violent acts. And they used each other's bodies to block the views so that you couldn't see the type of violence they were committing. And these were all supervisors and field training officers and all part of the SWAT team. I started investigating them. And the minute I terminated the officers, their police union got involved and said that I was incompetent, and the city manager went along with it. Although I've never had a single evaluation that said I was not. You know, I hold a PhD. I have been in policing for 38 years, have a stellar career and nationally recognized in the work that I do. But I was a Black female who had the audacity to fire white males.
Wow. That is crazy. Let me bring in my pal Larry. You get a question for Dr. Brackney. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks for coming on. I've had a chance to, read a few different articles about some of the challenges you encountered, and I wonder what the challenges you had to deal with. So you talked about your role in your work in law enforcement, but you're also an academic. So you're not only in terms of what you bring to the table in terms of, like I say, your role in law enforcement, but understanding statistics and various other methods in terms of addressing some of these issues. What does it say that we've seen this racial upheaval over the last couple of years? And there are a lot of individuals like yourself who've been brought into law enforcement and various other institutions to solve long-standing problems. But overall, what do you think it says about what happened to you and then the true commitment to address systemic issues, particularly in law enforcement?
So what I think it says about it is, one, policing is not an institution that can be reformed. It is operating solely as it was designed to operate. And we are foolish to believe that we might be able to reform this system. This is a system that must be deconstructed and imagined, not reimagined, in its current construct. It also says that racism and white supremacy, it adapts faster than any COVID variant. It adapts, it's more deadly than any sort of virus that we face in our communities. And the interesting thing about it is, we as Black folks aren't eligible for any vaccination or inoculation against it. It's going to continue operating the way that it operates. I also say that if we could not get it done after the public execution of George Floyd, through any of the George Floyd policing acts or any of the reforms, that movement that was there, if we couldn't get it done then, most police are going to do is hold their breath and wait until the next moment passes and let the movement pass by them. Both as an academic and as a practitioner, I understand it in my head what's going on, but the fear of what could happen to my Black male husband who stands 6'2", who's also an academic from Jackson, Mississippi. If they can make those kind of threats against me and I carry a gun every day, what does it look like with Black males and minority communities who are out there? When your own department threatens to kill you and you have to leave your station with your gun at your side because you don't know what's going to come out at you, what does that say for the rest of the community?
Robert.
This story is absolutely just mind-boggling, but it's not uncommon. What we've seen the last few years, particularly since, as you said, the murder of George Floyd, is law enforcement going after Black women in power, be it DAs like Marilyn Mosby or mayors like Keisha Lance Bottoms or Lori Lightfoot. What is it about the police power structure that has something against Black women, telling them what to do or questioning their judgment and questioning their actions?
Well, it's because they're completely empowered. Policing in America is 800,000 different police personnel, 18,000 different agencies with more than 800,000 individuals. And the majority of it is a white male institution. So the audacity of this Black woman who Malcolm X said is the most disrespected person in America, the least protected person in America, they feel very comfortable coming after us. And very seldom does anyone stand up and say, this is unacceptable. I filed a lawsuit in June of this year, and it isn't until the Washington Post comes out and says what I've been screaming from the rooftops to the DOJ to come in to investigate Charlottesville Police Department. I filed it with Civil Rights Division in Richmond, and I hear nothing back. And if I have the documents, like when I tell you I have receipts, I have the videos, I have the text messages, I have all of this evidence, and have been slowly posting it on my Twitter accounts, what it says is it's okay in America to treat us that way. And the ironic part about all of this, if you've been following Charlottesville, I exposed an insurrectionist who was at the insurrection in the Capitol, did security for Alex Jones and Rico Tario, works in the city of Charlottesville's IT department in public safety, and the city has said, oh, we'll keep him. We can't terminate him for his behaviors, but we can terminate the chief without cause. Now, let that sink in. I was terminated without cause. And that was in the contract, that they've terminated me without cause, but they'll keep an insurrectionist. And I'm going to let you guess what that person's gender and race is, and they don't look like me.
Looks like we have the technical issues solved with Nola. Nola, go right ahead.
Can you hear me okay? Because I think I'm frozen.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for being vocal, for standing up for yourself. When I first read this story, I was apoplectic. I was so annoyed, you know, as a Black woman and, you know, working in spaces with a lot of white males, I find that, you know, the moment you open your mouth, the moment you have an opinion, you know, the eyes start to roll and you hear the sighs and like, here comes this hypercritical Black woman and, you know, she's going to have an attitude and it's going to be all these things. And so one of the things that I feel like that I've recognized, you know, especially since George Floyd, and thank you for so much for putting it in context. So you had this rush to, you had this rush towards DEIA, right? You had this rush towards diversity. And then in a split second, everyone immediately got exhausted. And a lot of Black women were put in positions of power. And so my question to you is, how did you feel when you first got hired into your role? Did you think that your identities had something to do with it? And if you did think that, how did you handle it? Like, what was that process? Because I know, you know, how I feel in some of the positions that I hold in my own life. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm okay if diversity is one of the reasons why I am here. But then on the other hand, am I okay with that? So I'm just very curious, like, you know, what was your process and what was your thinking? And lastly, I hope that you have some level of security for yourself. And I hope that you and your family are okay going through this.
Let's do the first part, security. We've had to install alarms all over our home. I have a weapon in every room of my house. We do not open our doors without checking them first. I live in the district where the Police Benevolence Association union member who brought all the you know, charges against me. I live in that police state. But I applied for the first time in 38 years for concealed carry, so it is coming out. If you all let you know, it is in the Louis at all times. You know, I'm pulling it out the bag. Don't let the lip gloss fool you. So our security is tight. But let me just say this. I understand I live in Central Virginia and Charlottesville, and the likelihood that someone will do something foolish is great. And I listened to your prior story. Cops will cover up those kinds of incidents. They talk about the thin blue line and I don't see black or white, I only see blue. Blue, they see shades of blue. And I have never been the right shade of blue. When I was first brought on to Charlottesville, I think, so the mayor was out of the activist community. You know, Mayor Nakaya Walker had been part of the community that was fighting white supremacy and then was the mayor. And she hired me with Dr. West Bellamy. And Yes, I was hired for qualifications that I was a Black female. I did fit those demographics. But like I said before, I hold a PhD. I have been in policing for 38 years. I've gone through the FBI National Academy, the Secret Service National Academies. I've gone through bomb schools. I ran our SWAT teams. I headed up our investigation. I did 31 years in the city of Pittsburgh, retiring as a commander there. So yes, people like to say that I was this affirmative action quota hire. If that's what a quota hire looks like, then yeah, I'll take that. The sad part is that in 2021, 2022, the fact that we're still saying the first, the only, the one should sadden every single one of us. And remember the trauma. And so I appreciate not only your question, the trauma when you are that first one who breaks through a ceiling. Think about the metaphor. You're coming through glass and shards, and it's being dug into your skin, and you're being scarred, and then you're going to land on some shaky ground because that ceiling that you broke, and nobody's often there to support you.
All right, Dr. Brackney, we appreciate you joining us on the show. This story is absolutely crazy. Hopefully the Department of Justice will look at the information that you've already uncovered, and then will do a patterns and practice investigation into the Charlottesville Police Department. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot and stay safe.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
All right, folks, got to go to break. We come back. We'll talk Tech Talk segment.
Thank you.
Nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
An angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance.
We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
Yo, what's up? This your boy Ice Cube.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
You've heard of these black creative houses for folks who are on Instagram and TikTok. What about a hacker house? Where two brothers have launched that in New York. It is certainly an interesting concept. Co-founders Rusty and River Fields join us from Brooklyn, New York. Gentlemen, glad to have you here. So what is a hacker house?
Yes, first off, thank you so much for having us. We're super excited to be here. So Hacker House is, and our house, which is named Bar Project, is a community built for Black engineers, founders, creators, and their allies to come together, co-live, co-work, and work on startups together.
All right, so are you housing hackers, or is that just simply a nice marketing name to get attention?
Yeah, so the concept, so our project is called Our House, and the concept of what it is a hacker house. And there's different iterations of these, like in Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Austin. It's just these places where software engineers, they come together. You leverage the power of collaboration community. You exchange resources, networks, and backgrounds to each help promote and each other's growth and development, and contribute to each other both personally and professionally.
And so how does it work? How long does someone stay there? Is it, just walk us through what one of these houses, how does it operate?
So we just completed our first one, running from July 11th to August 5th. 4 weeks, 4-week residency hacker house. So we curated a group of 13 engineers, designers, artists, product devs to co-live, co-work in a 3-story Bed-Stuy brownstone and launched some ambitious Web3, Web2 startups. So we had, during the 4 weeks, they were spending most of the days working on their projects. Then we had fireside chats, panel discussions, lots of networking events, and then also really awesome guest speakers. For example, Ryan Hoover from Product Hunt, founder of Product Hunt, spoke with the group. Also, Colin Wallace, who's a serial entrepreneur in the food and beverage space. So it went really well, and we're planning on hosting another Hacker House October.
Let's see, I'm sure if there was a gun house, Robert would host one. So Robert, what's your question for these two brothers in Tech Talk? All right, don't have Robert there. Got Larry.
Yeah, so first of all, congratulations. It's a great concept. We know that there's a need for more Black engineers. What I also like is this idea of collaboration with engineers coming together in one place over a period of time to work on concepts and support each other. I wonder if you talk about, I know that you've been offering some, individuals rewards, right? So they have an opportunity to have people receive some startup money. So can you talk a little bit about who, some of the other entities or organizations you've been collaborating with to kind of give you seed money so you can support some of these other engineers?
Yeah, so we've been supported by Citizens Committee for New York City, which is it's a nonprofit organization, major nonprofit organization in New York City that supports micro grants to grassroots organizations doing impactful work, and they gave us a $5,000 check to support our work with our house. Yeah, in partnership with Wells Fargo.
Nola, your question?
This is so amazing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
We got you. Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. So this is so amazing. I'm so excited about this. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful idea. And so I think I have a little bit of a different question that's not about the actual tech. I'm very curious about the co-living situation and how that has been going. And do you think that this model will that the result will be a greater result in terms of creativity and how people are collaborating together? I'm just very curious about that type of model that you all have set up. And so far, what are you finding? Like, what are some of the pros? What are some of the cons? I mean, are we going to get a reality show going forward one time in the future? I mean, so what is that environment like? I'm very curious.
Yeah, so just to your question on the co-living, so I think it's really awesome experience, and what we've heard from the court has been incredibly impactful, especially coming off of the back of COVID-19, this period where everyone was quarantined. And so it's really leaning into this idea that there's power in collaboration, there's power in community, and that when you're building in isolation, it's much harder. You're navigating this process on your own. And when you come in community, you get to leverage the idea, you get to leverage the experience and background of everyone else in the house.
Yeah. All right, then. Gentlemen, if people want to get more information, how do they reach you?
Yeah, so you can reach us online at our house, so the letter rhouse.nyc. Follow us on Twitter at rhousenyc and on Instagram at rhouse.nyc. And so there you can stay tuned with updated information about events we have coming up, the upcoming applications in October for the cohort in Bed-Stuy, and then we're also doing a cohort in November, 4-week residency around Afrotech in Austin, Texas. And so information on that will also be on the website, Instagram, and Twitter.
All right, then. Rusty and Riverfields, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, thank you so much.
Folks, quick break. We come back. NFL players in the choir performing in America's Got Talent. We'll talk to one of them next on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
I challenge myself as an artist and knowing that I'm going to challenge the audience, right? So oftentimes you come into this business off of one project where everybody's like, ooh, you stand out. Okay, for me it was Barbershop. Ricky, da-da-da-da-da-da. Ricky was nothing like me growing up, right? Nothing like me growing up. But if that's people's first experience with you, right, as an audience member, they tend to think that's the real you, right? So, you know, for me, after that, I got a whole bunch of offers to play roles just like Ricky, right? This Tupac-esque type of thug, right? And I just said no over and over again. And then you keep trying to do other things. And then I went through a series of romantic movies and romantic leads, and you know, I always try to bring some sort of gravitas to those roles. And then it was like, okay, well, but before I get into all of that, let me hit y'all with, you know, For Color Girls, and, you know, step outside of the realm of, you know, what you expect of me to do as an audience member in terms of being this romantic lead and everything. Because I didn't get into this business to be the romantic lead, you know, that dude. Like, I didn't get into this
locked
business. You can totally get locked in.
Hi, I'm Gavin Houston. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's your boy Jacob Lattimore, and you're now watching Roland Martin right now.
All right, you know, you got professional football players who are excellent on the field, but what about in the choir? That's right, for years, the NFL players have actually had their own choir. They've been performing all across the country. Now they are also on America's Got Talent. Joining us right now from Atlanta is Brian Scott, a former Atlanta Falcons and Buffalo Bills player and a member of the Players Choir. Brian, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks.
I've been to, there's always a gospel event every year around the Super Bowl, and the Players Choir has performed there. And so how long has this choir been around?
Well, you know what? First, happy Wednesday. It's great to see you. We've been around 14, so the choir's been around 14 years. And it started with the vision of the executive producer and founder, Melanie Few, had this vision and put together this show called the Super Bowl Gospel Celebration. It's always held at the site of the Super Bowl. And you know what? One year it was Miss Patti LaBelle was there, and she was looking out in the crowd, and she said, you know, I see some really handsome guys out there that play football, but I bet none of them can sing. And when she put that challenge out there, there was a couple of guys that came up and they took the mic, man, and they started singing. So that was the vision to say, you know what, there actually is some musical talent inside the NFL, and we formed this choir.
So Pag tried to play y'all, huh?
That's right.
So and now how often do y'all perform?
So we really would only get together maybe 1 to 2 times a year, because guys, we live all over the country, and really hard to practice, making sure we take advantage of, you know, the virtual platforms. But this year we performed at the Pro Bowl. We sang the national anthem, and they caught wind of that, and they said, you know what, it might be an interesting audition if you audition for AGT. So we decided, we first said no, then said yes, then said no, then ultimately said yes and took the shot.
So let's talk about this America's Got Talent. How has that been going?
So it went really, really well. You know, we went out there for the audition, and we sang Bill Withers' Lean on Me. And, you know, honestly, a lot of us, we can't really dance, so trying to dance and sing at the same time, listen, if it was a reality show, we would have just season rated, really high ratings. But at the end of the audition, Simon threw us for a loop, and he says, you know what, I didn't really like the track, let me hear y'all sing it a cappella. And we just kind of looked at each other like, you know what, all right, here we go, 1, 2, 3, and sang it, and we got a standing ovation, man, and it was a really cool feeling.
All right, so what's next? Obviously, the competition. So, are you guys moving forward? What's next?
So we just were on the live rounds last week, and we finished in the top 5, but not in the top 2 in order to move on. And so because of it now, hopefully we need everybody to get behind us, because there's a wild card spot out there. And for us to continue the journey, we need America to vote for us to continue on in the wild card. So please follow us, man. We would love the support.
Real quick questions from Robert had to leave. So Nola, I'll start with you. Nola, then Larry, go.
So this is such a beautiful story, and I'm just sitting here smiling. So in terms of, it's such a feel-good story. Like the other stories have been pretty heavy, so this is a nice, nice timeline cleanse, so to speak. So what do you want to do with this? Album in the works, like, deals?
We talk about that a lot, The reason we come together, it really is to just bring joy and laughter. It shows a completely different side of pro athletes, especially football players, because people think that we're mean and aggressive, but ultimately we are some big kids up there. And we perform at different charities. And even during the live round, we said, you know what, even if America doesn't like us, we're going to entertain ourselves. And hopefully people at home, they'll be snapping their fingers, clapping their hands, tapping their feet, and just smiling the whole time that we're up there.
Larry.
Yeah, so, first of all, as a, big NFL sports fan, I didn't know about the choir. So, thanks for coming on the show and talking about it. My question really relates to current players. What are you hearing from current players that, when they see you guys perform, or in terms of, obviously you've been on national television, what are you hearing from current players?
Yeah, a lot of the reaching out and saying, man, way to represent up there. It was really entertaining. We've actually had some guys, they call us and they email and they say, hey, how can I get on? I can sing just a little bit. So it's really encouraging. But the biggest takeaway is, and we tell guys all the time, it's not about necessarily the singing aspect of it. We have created an extension of the locker room. And for a lot of the guys, even though it's both current and former players that are in there, when you're done playing, the biggest void that we have is that camaraderie. And we have actually just developed that. So it's our safe space. It's our place to where we can be transparent with one another, because there's a lot of things that we deal with that, the public might not know or see. And man, we take it from there. So it is it's a mentally well-being place for us to be, if that even makes sense.
All right, then. Well, when is the next AGT appearance?
So we don't know. We won't know. We got voted off last week, and hopefully once these rounds go in about 4 or 5 weeks, we'll learn if we're in the wild card round. So please stay tuned, follow AGT, and if we get to that level, we need the votes, we need the support.
All right, Brian Scott, I certainly appreciate it. Thank you so very much, man.
Thanks for having me, man. Happy Wednesday.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, that is it for us. Tomorrow, I will be speaking here in actually Clearwater, Tampa area, if you will. We'll be addressing the Tampa National Black and Latino Summit. Of course, it is is the National Black and Latino Organization Economic Summit. So I'll be speaking, and we will be, of course, also live streaming that speech as well. You do not want to miss it. Erica Savage is going to be filling in for me tomorrow, because when I'm done, I'm flying to the Bahamas for the Grand Goulet Conference. And so Erica will be holding this thing down. So I appreciate everyone being here. Nola, thank you so very much for being with us. I know we had some technical issues. We fought through those things. We'll blame those West Coast bugs. Larry, thanks a lot. Robert had to leave early. We appreciate him as well. And yeah, Nola, I know you didn't get to be a little spicy today. Yeah.
I just want to say one quick thing. Go Saints. That's it. I said it. Go Saints.
Nah, go Eagles.
See, we're not about to have this conversation. Go Saints. That's all I need to say. That's it. I'm done. Mm-hmm.
We ain't talking football.
We just talked football. I didn't want to say it to the former.
No, we didn't. No, we talked the choir. We talked the choir. We talked singing. We ain't talk football.
Go Saints. That's all. That's it. That's go Saints.
You done?
Have fun on your trip, Roland.
You done?
I'm done.
Lord have mercy. All right, y'all. See, that's it. See, she's trying to get a little extra, like she got some spicy gumbo. All right, y'all. That's it for us. I appreciate everybody for watching, for joining us. Thank you so very much. Don't forget, folks, download the Black Star Network app. We need to hit 50,000 downloads. Let's get it going, y'all. Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Xbox One, Samsung Smart TV. And, of course, we're also trying to get 2,000 of our fan base to contribute at least $50 for the year in this month to raise $100,000. We're behind in our giving from last year. Your dollars make it possible for us to be able to launch new shows, to cover different news. Again, you've got this show, Faraji's Daily Show. You've got weekly shows from Deborah and Jackie and Stephanie and Greg. Every 2 weeks, Rolling with Roland. Great interview with Michael Ealy. I want y'all to definitely check that out. Man, lots of stuff going on, folks. We want y'all to support us in what we do. So check in money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinFilter.com. Don't forget, pre-order your copy of White Fear. It is out now. White Fear is out now. Pre-order your copy. It drops September 13th. I would love for us to debut with about 25,000 copies of that book sold. And of course, I'll be traveling around the country talking about it. And you can get it from Ben Bella Book. All of these websites, Ben Bella Books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, IndieBound, Bookshop, Chapters, Books A Million, Target. Of course, if you're in Canada, you can get the book there as well. You can order the book online. White Fear, How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. It's basically the story of the Republican Party. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you guys later. Y'all take care. Holla!